Welcome to Noon Wednesday. I'm Marissa Wojcik, multimedia journalist with Here and Now on PBS Wisconsin. Today is December 15. The city of Kenosha has been hurled into the national spotlight for more than a year after Jacob Blake was shot by a police officer 7 times, and a Black Lives Matter protest in response. Kyle Rittenhouse shot 3 people, killing 2. Now, no charges were brought against the officer who shot Blake, and Rittenhouse was recently acquitted of all charges. So to hear from one community leader about how Kenosha moves forward, we turn to James Hall, interim president and CEO of the Urban League of Racine and Kenosha. And James, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So after no charges were filed, the officer who shot Jacob Blake and now Kyle Rittenhouse has been acquitted. How is the community feeling and reacting, especially Black and brown people in the area?
Well, unfortunately, the Black and brown community expected no charges to be filed, and we expected Kyle Rittenhouse to be acquitted because the judge had kind of tipped his hand already in which direction, the direction of the case. So we kind of expected that.
Is there exhaustion from fighting this same fight over and over? Is there feelings of kind of trauma after dealing with this for more than a year?
Well, the Black and brown population has been dealing with this for 400 years, unfortunately, in this country. So it's a lot of trauma involved, but what do? Year after year, month after month, there's new cases around the country. And, Kenosha, Wisconsin just put on display when the Jacob Blake situation and the Kyle Rittenhouse, the sentiments that ripples throughout the country. And the problem is that the Black and brown population is just grown used to it, unfortunately. We don't expect any justice anymore in this country. We have no expectations to be treated fairly, but we still figure out a way to continue to forge forward.
And you've said, given the outcomes of these 2 major events, it shows that white males get away with what Black and brown males cannot. You said we still need to move forward. How do you propose doing that?
Well, the Black and brown population, how we move forward based on hope that it'll get better someday, one day. But the reality of it is that it has never gotten better. We're fighting the same fights that we fought in the 60s and prior to the 60s, Jim Crow era, right after, the abolishment of slavery. We've been fighting the same fights for years. And however, Black folks and brown people as individuals have done better in this country, but as a culture, we've been dealing with the same issues for 400 years.
So is this an issue that people who are white need to be addressing and dealing with, or instead of the burden always falling on the Black and brown population?
The only way this problem is going to be solved here in America is white people must begin to look in the mirror, examine themselves, examine their families, have these conversations at the dinner table, in their personal conversations amongst family and friends, in their personal and private conversations. This problem is not going to be solved with just the Black and brown population, because it didn't start with the Black and brown population. The Black and brown population often is the victim in this case. And in order for us to advance and move forward, we literally have to have white men and women to really examine themselves and say, wow, this is going too far. What can we do to stop this? There's been laws in the books. We have laws in the books at the federal level, state level, but it still happens because white males tend to believe that the law doesn't apply to them. They can do what they want.
Does it seem as if also certain laws are written in a way to be more privileged to certain people than other people?
Well, if we look at this on the surface, the law is the law. It's supposed to be blind. You know, however, people of privilege always have been a factor of the laws because they have the resources to work around the law. But in the case when it comes down to white males, when white males tend to disagree with something, they do what we've seen happen on January 6th. They get together, they rally, and they decide to do what they want to do. And oftentimes there's absolutely no repercussions, none at all. Look at, Cal Rittenhouse, a young man that should not have been in Kenosha, but at the same time, he felt that he needed to be a part of this action. Now, I believe Cal Rittenhouse, his issue started way back when you go to the ideas of what happened years ago in Florida, when the young man only had some Skittles, and the guy that was acting as security, I'm not going to say their names for obvious reasons, was acting as security and killed a man. That was the prelude, because we didn't do anything to address that issue there. That empowered white males to say, we can take justice in our own hands. We can do what we want anytime. We don't need to call the authorities. Well, all other coaches are always coached and trained. Please call the police. Don't get involved. Call the police and allow the police to handle it. Well, white men tend to get away with taking things in their own hands. It's like, being a victim. In this country, when it comes down to white males versus everyone else, well, everyone else has been a victim to a degree because the white males are often the predator. And the predators always, in this country right now, gets away with anything. And then a victim is taught to be shamed. Even though you suffered the crisis and you went through the pain and you went through the trauma, you're still victimized even more after the incident. Like Cal Rittenhouse, he gets to be called a hero for taking some lives. How is that even fair in this country? How is it fair in this country? Murder is murder no matter what. He was allowed to say he was there in self-defense. But how was that even possible when he shouldn't have been there to begin? He wasn't defending his property. He wasn't defending his family. He wasn't defending anything that had anything to do with him personally, but yet he had the right to claim self-defense. Wow. If there was any black or brown person being in a place where they weren't supposed to be, and black and brown people often are given 5-10-year cases because they was at the wrong place at the wrong time, they didn't have nothing to do with it. They were just strolling down the park. They just happened to be there. No evidence points to them, but they get years of their life taken from them. Now, oftentimes people say, well, he had resources and he was able to hire the best attorneys. Well, I'm confused by that because my understanding is this money was raised for Cal Rittenhouse. The outside white America said, well, that's one of ours and we need to protect ours. He'd been to Florida. He taking pictures with the Republican Party. He's on a hero circuit right now. But there's many innocent people all throughout this country that oftentimes never get their voice heard simply because they don't have the resources. No one steps up to help them.
Do you think that white people understand the fear of yourself when you leave the house? Do you think that it's important for people to understand the fear of just being out in the world as a person of color?
No, white people don't understand that. Every black and brown person, especially when they leave outside of their community and go to other communities and shop, white people can never understand that. To walk in a store, myself personally, I'm not a criminal, don't have any, no background, but to this day, I can have a shirt and tie on and walk in the local mall, say the Pleasant Prairie, and it has happened to me. I'm not gonna say any particular store, where people follow you through the store and look at you like you don't belong there. And it's like, well, I have money and I'm spending money just like the other person, but they watch you. And the excuse is, well, your people always commit these crimes. Well, I'm confused. We often are profiled based on what some other group of people have done. Okay? I understand that there's a lot of crime that exists in this country that black and brown people stereotypically fit the bill for. But shouldn't we be looked upon as individuals? In this country, black and brown people never judged like white people as individuals. They're always judged based on the culture. And that's not fair. So
in our first Noon Wednesday interview this year, we heard from Tanya McLean from Leaders of Kenosha, and she expressed that she was frustrated because she felt like city and county officials weren't listening and working with local community leaders such as her or yourself. Has that been your experience? And what reforms or demands are you calling for from people in power, elected officials, law enforcement of the Kenosha area?
well, what I've called for in the past is more communication amongst the black and brown population from the police force, from the mayor and the elected officials, the leadership. Long term, right after the incident or the tragic incident that took place, communication was there. We were talking pretty much, every week. But that's because they knew that there was a possible outcome. You had case, you had other things that was coming behind it. But once it wears thin, then it goes back to normal. It goes to business as usual, like it didn't exist. So white people have the chance in Kenosha to actually heal. They know what comfort feels like. They go back, they take the boards off their windows and their doors, and they go back to business as usual. Well, sometimes black folks and brown people don't have that opportunity because we never had a chance to heal. We're always under a constant attack, always under a constant terror. That's what this is. I mean, it's a form of terrorism inside the black and brown community. And that's what we've grown used to. It is no different from what's taking place in third world countries. We experience traumatic issues daily. Every single day we experience that in whether it's Racine, Kenosha, or some form of Wisconsin. Just recently, we had a major situation in a high school where it was some racial slurs that was, written inside the high school, and the school that was receiving the school knew that those players were predominantly black, so they did it on purpose. And the excuse that we always get when we deal with these issues is, well, we got to figure out a way to parent better, or we can't control how parents parent their children. No one wants to put a solution in place and say, okay, enough of this, stop it. We always have more excuses. Well, we didn't know Johnny was like that. Well, here's the thing. The Cal Rittenhouse situation has already produced a copycat situation. If you look at Oxford, Michigan, I believe that's where it's at. Because the Cal Rittenhouse issue was not fully addressed properly, then you have another case that is going to pop up, is going to appear. The same way that for years the black and brown people has been complaining about drugs in their community and violence in their community that was been overlooked for year after year after year, we're saying the same thing when it comes down to police brutality and white males getting away with everything and anything. If we don't stop this now, what are we teaching the younger white males that are 15 years old, that are 12 years old, that's watching this stuff on social media and on TV? We're literally telling them, you can do what you want and nothing is gonna ever happen to you. You can take someone's life, you can harass somebody, you can traumatize somebody, you can rape somebody, you can do whatever you want and nothing is gonna happen to you. Think about that. We have a Supreme Court justice that was challenged a few years ago, and the victim that was on display, they really traumatized her even more to pretty much call her a liar from her experience in her own life. When we approved the last the Supreme Court justice, it was okay. That's a historic pattern that we see here, that white men can literally do whatever they want all the time, and nobody does anything to them because they can appeal to themselves for the most part and get out of jail free card each and every time.
What are you asking for from the people of Kenosha specifically?
Well, the leadership in Kenosha need to begin to invest in the Black and brown community. Serious investment. When I say invest, I'm saying re-examine their schools that's in the Black and brown community, the parks in the Black and brown community, the local policing policies that are located in the Black and brown community. I must say, to some degree, the Kenosha Police Department has some fairness to it. I cannot say all of the police of Kenosha is unfair. But what I am saying is the mayor and the chief need to constantly re-examine the policing policies, how they police the Black community, how they deal with police to school structure here, how they, the lack of investment in the Black and brown communities, and literally decide to say, we need to really physically invest in this community as a whole, because I believe a rising tides raise all ships. Now, if they don't make these investments here in this region, well, then Kenosha is too small to not be affected by poverty, by crime. Last week or the week before last, we had someone get killed in our downtown area. Okay? Is that crime? Is it poverty? What is it linked to? What is, in my opinion, it's just linked to a poor investment across the board. The poor investment, lack of resources in the Black and brown community that we need to have to give the people in the Black and brown community some sense of ownership and pride. We need to have more home ownership programs that allow Black and brown people to be able to purchase a home instead of paying extremely high rate rents. See, small things like that creates a lot of pressure. If someone is struggling from day to day because they work at, say, a local retail store, they're only making minimum wage or $15, $16 an hour, which everybody thinks that's a living wage, which at the end of the day it's not. If they have 5, 6 children and they're not there to police their children because they have to work, then what happens is the kids raise themselves. We don't have any daycares. We don't have any resources in the park for the kids to go. We don't have any of these programs that's extended after school, where these kids can be a part of. They're in select neighborhoods. But when you go to most of the white communities here in Kenosha, they have all those extended programs. They have things for people that look like them to do on a regular basis. Okay, we do have a Boys and Girls Club here in the city of Kenosha, but it's not in the heart of the community where the Black and brown people are. They have to travel. They have to get on the bus. It's not within reasonable walking distance to where the communities needed to be. It's on 52nd. I mean, it's over there in the area where they have to get there. But then at the same time, it's not open long enough for those children to be able to benefit. So kids get out of school, let's say 2:30, 3:15. The Boys and Girls Club is closed right around, I think, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Well, most crime happen between 3 and 10:30. That means the kids are not engaged somewhere. So we don't have places for these kids to go, not just to hang out, but to get additional leadership, get additional foundation from different environments. We're leaving it all up to the schools, okay? The schools can't solve all the problems. The schools can't parent. The schools can't educate 24 hours. We have to have other things in the community where these kids can turn to so they can actually improve themselves. At some point, these children know right and wrong. They just need a place to help them to discover themselves. And so that's what we're trying to do with the Urban League with some of the programs that we put in place for the most part.
I was going to ask, what are, the biggest priorities for you and the people you serve through the Urban League? And it sounds like youth in particular is very, very important to you and your organization.
Yes, youth development. So right before the Jacob Blake situation took place, our board decided that we need to re-examine how to help this community. So we re-examined our programming, and our focus is going to be on youth development. Youth development from middle school all the way through 24 years old. So what we're doing is we have a program called Urban 3S, where teenagers come in pretty much sophomore, 10th grade and up, and express their experiences that they've had in KUSD or around Kenosha. They talk about it, they express themselves. It's team-led, it's one adult facilitator, but the way it's formatted, the adult can only take notes. The adult can't even interject, because we want it led by the team so we can understand what they're experiencing. We put that in place because we knew that the children were suffering in silence. Most of our kids here in this Kenosha region, Kenosha-Racine region, they're suffering in silence. They don't have anybody to turn to. They're not comfortable often talking to their parents because they believe their parents are too old to understand. They suffer based on whatever they experience in school. And it's a lot of microaggression that these kids experience in our school system. So then they feel not welcome, they feel not wanted. So they try to figure out ways to escape that system. And then they figure out ways not to want to be involved in school, period. That's one thing. We have a reading program where we're trying to be really proactive and catch the kid as early as possible so we can make sure that they know how to read, because it's a really uncomfortable stat. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the stat as far as if a kid can read the 3rd grade, they pretty much will survive or not go to prison for the most part. But if a kid can't read the 3rd grade, he or she is pretty much going to go to prison. So we're trying to interrupt that school to prison pipeline completely. So that's why we have the reading program that's as early as possible. We're trying to catch them early as possible. We have a team leadership program that we're trying to help individuals craft their ideas and shape themselves into become leaders so they can be more outspoken and lead themselves when they in these school programs, and they can voice themselves properly. They know who the right person that they can go to advocate for them. And then we have STEM program. We have a STEM program that teaches the arts and bring out creativity to allow the students to rediscover who they are. Those are programs that we're focusing on. And then we have the general, what we call soft skills, job interviewing, job training. We have that in the program as general. But we're finding out the kids want to do things. They want to be a part of things. However, they're not given the opportunity. But then when you talk to the other side, they're not given the opportunity because the kids are not skilled enough. So it's like a two-edged sword here. So we're trying to help the kids solve their problems on their end, but also get them prepared to be able to move forward in their lives. And that's the focus of the Urban League of Racing Kenosha at this point.
As we've already mentioned, the events of the last year and a half are a very intense, short period of time. But then you've said there is decades of trauma. So how do you define healing, both in the short term and the long term?
Healing in the short term is, well, I'll do it this way. Healing typically goes back to, when you heal, you go back to what is considered normal. Okay? Black and brown people don't know what normal is because we never had a chance where we have had a chance to breathe. I'm talking about as a culture. I'm not talking about as individuals. Individuals in the Black and brown community, I'm reiterating this, have had successes, and they have moved up the ladder, and they've been able to realize the American dream. But when it comes down to our culture as a whole, we have not been able to discover the American dream because we've never had a chance to heal from the perspective of what's normal. What's normal to the Black and brown population is terror in our community. So that's, in the short term, is allowing more white people to come into the Black and brown communities, find out, talk to people at the local grocery store, talk to someone that you never talked to before, you may discover while you're at the grocery store that you have more likenesses than difference. However, the long term is we got to figure out a way to bridge the gap between equity and inclusion in Wisconsin, in Kenosha, in Racine. White people have to not be afraid if a black person advance in their job or get a new career or open up a business that is not taking anything from them. It's tons of resources out here. When I believe in most cases that most white people believe if one group gains, the other one loses. That's not true. If we all work together and work together collectively, we all can win. I believe we all want the same for our families. We all want great school system. We all want great health care. We all want that. It doesn't mean just because one person has it or one group has it that the other group won't get it or they're going to lose it. So in the long term, I would love for white people to remove their fear of black and brown people. And that will go a long ways to us improving this racism relationship.
People have been seeing and reading about Kenosha, even in international news, like we've said, for more than a year. What do you want those who have been on the outside gazing in to know and understand about your community?
Well, the Kenosha community is a small microcosm of what we see in the world. If the outsiders can observe Kenosha, so let's not make any mistakes. Kenosha is a resilient community. Most people in Kenosha know each other, or they went to school with each other at one of the local high schools, or they work together. So most people in Kenosha know each other. It's actually like a small town feel here. Everybody know each other or related in some way, shape, or form. So that's what I want everybody to know. But at the same time, I don't want everybody to look at Kenosha as this extremely divided city, because we're not divided. Just because Kenosha has had some disagreements with law enforcement or in a judicial system, most of those people still go out to lunch together when it's all over. They sit at the dinner table discussing issues, not the issues that I think they should discuss, but they are discussing issues with each other in their households. So I don't want everybody to think Kenosha is just this crazy place where, we have people run around killing each other and we have a judge that just does what he want to do, so to speak. That's not the people of Kenosha. I believe the people of Kenosha is a very fair, resilient, and respectful people that help each other out. I mean, oftentimes when we have lots of snow that falls here, and you'll see neighbors helping each other, helping one another dig out of ditches and be a part of each other. During this epidemic, during coronavirus, excuse me, we had people grocery shopping for one another. It was a strong community here. That's what we have here, but we do have problems. And the problems that exist in Kenosha are long-term institutional problems. It's not personal, it's institutional problems that need to be fixed. That's all. And if we can begin to fix these problems institutionalized at the federal level, state level, it'll trickle down. But I believe Kenosha can be the example. If we get this right, Kenosha has the potential to be the example for the entire country, because we're a small microcosm of what exists in America, how America exists today.
All right, we leave it there. James Hall of the Urban League of Racine and Kenosha, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For more from Here and Now and PBS Wisconsin, you can visit pbswisconsin.org/news. And thank you so much for joining us on Noon Wednesday. We'll see you next year.